Hey Goobs, what the heck is up, and welcome to Peel the Wheel, where we break down color combinations and other nonsense in the MTG Universe. Today we're talking about a topic that makes me and most others shudder at just hearing the word. That's right, we're talking about Phyrexia. So go ahead and sit tight, create a few food tokens, and let's get right into it. So first and foremost, Phyrexia is a place, and in most cases in MTG, it's on one plane, meaning that it exists in its own spot and can only be accessed by special means. Spark Ignition. Now I could go into that in its own video, so we'll save that for another time, but basically what I'm saying is, it's not a mana, well, kinda. So up until this point, I've covered mostly mana or mana variants, and you bet your butt this falls right in that same category, but not to the extent as others. See, mana up to this point is what I consider part of the core that is Magic the Gathering. Basically how I quantify this is A, is it part of the game? B, does it hold relevance in current game modes? Or C, are they still printing cards of that nature currently? And this meets all marks except for one, and that's C, and with very good reason. It did break the entire game on literal impact. So let's talk about Phyrexian mana first, and then we can get into that juicy lore. So Phyrexian mana looks like, well, this. And if you notice, it's a sphere with a dark slash through the center, very similar to the Greek letter phi. Wonder where they got that name from. Anyways, it's not all stolen or anything. This symbol represents a very unique thing about the planes as a whole and can be quite fashionable. It comes in red, blue, green, black, and even white. So what does this mean on your card? Well, if you see this symbol on your card, be sure to burn it because it is unholy. Well, no. But when you see this, it means that you can do one of two things. You can either pay the color represented behind the mark, or you can pay 2 life instead. Additionally, if there's no color behind the symbol, it can be paid with any color, similar to colorless. Simple, right? Wrong. See, with the addition of these cards, they broke the game, particularly in standard and other formats where multi-copies of cards were allowed. See, typically you need to run mana in your deck that corresponds to the color of card that you use in that deck. And each of those colors have their own strengths and weaknesses and their own uniqueness to them. And if you want to know what I mean, you can go ahead and look at my previous videos because I broke down all of them, and they're really not that long, so go ahead and give them a watch. But in short, basically if I was running a white mono-themed deck, meaning all the cards in it were white, I would lose access to card draw that the other colors would grant me in exchange for more reactions and control in my games because that's what white does. However, with this little mana symbol here, go ahead and throw that out the window because that's a hogwash. Oh, I want to run a monoed white color deck with all denials, but none of the draw like blue? Nah, just go ahead and toss in 4 Gixian probes in there. Oh, now I've decided that I want to run a red deck with hyper-aggressive creatures, but sacrifice my access to any grave recursion like a black or green? Nah, go ahead and throw in 4 Postmortem Lunge, bring them back, and give those puppies haste. No problem, easy. This made the format literally flip on its head. Like, twice, actually. Not to mention, Surgical Extraction was a real-life card, and basically allowing you to pick one card that your opponent has and exile all copies from their hand, deck, and graveyard. This led to a lot of people actually declaring itself on the opponent just so they could gain the advantage later on in the game, and the other player couldn't have access to that card. Also, I don't even really want to talk about Birthing Pod. I mean, it's an artifact that spawns creatures from your deck and literally created a term that we all use for all cards that are similar. I activate pods, response, and I wasn't even around during those days and I still use that term. So it's pretty crazy. There are 35 cards that feature this little symbol, and honestly you should check them all out because each of them are just as busted as the last one. As for special abilities you're going to see on these cards, you're going to see, well, Infect, basically making any creature with this card deal its damage in -1/-1 counters. Oh, and if you hit an opponent directly, they actually take the damage permanently, and if they take 10 or more damage, they just lose the game. So, you know, that's fair and balanced. And arguably one of the better mechanics that came from this set, I'd have to say Proliferate is one you're going to see pretty often, and it's actually really cool. It's still used to this day, and it's actually a really cool mechanic. It came to this set basically allowing you to increase other counters on the board by 1 as long as its conditions are met, and that could be any counters from +1/+1 counters, it could be, you know, loyalty counters, it could be anything as long as you met the conditions for Proliferate. Luckily, Magic runs sets, and this terror only lasted from October 2010 to February 2011. Wait, what? That was a whole year? That's bullshit! Anyway, anyways, that's basically it for the mechanics. So, do we want to get into this juicy lore now? Well, I'm gonna have to be honest, I'm just gonna scratch the surface here and save the full video for another time, since this set is huge. Like, I'm talking big old Chungus sized lore. But what I can tell you is the plane itself is an artificial plane of mechanical and biomechanical life. I put that in quotation marks because, like, it's... Ecosystems are comprised of mostly metal, death, and tissue. It's a hellish world of accelerated evolution and artifact creatures. It's also known as the Machine Hell or the Nine Hells. It's composed of 9 spheres, hence the name, and much like an onion, the deeper you get down, the more tears will definitely be shed. And honestly, that's all I have time for today, but I promise you in the next video we'll go over every single layer, and we'll look at their significance to the MTG Universe and what their end goal was, as long as that's something you'd want me to do. However, I do have a certain planeswalker that really wants me to visit their plane next, and spooky season is among us, and I have to be prepared for what the night brings us. So if you liked the video, consider liking or even subscribing, hit that bell for notifications, and as always, thank you and take it easy. Terra out. Bye!